go over the minutes. I just wanted to, as far as the 2020 Traffic Commission schedule, do we, I was going to keep the same date, Thursday, first Thursday of each month, at 1:30.
Sure.
Any objection?
Quick question.
Yes.
For January, I think that's the 2nd?
Yes.
Are we meeting the 2nd?
Why not?
I don't know.
What, are you going to have a hangover? Is that what you want?
I'm just trying to cover all the bases for everyone. I'm okay with meeting on the 2nd, just want to make sure.
Sure, what else is there to do?
That's
Good way to start the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Friendly faces.
So then I will pass it on to the city clerk then. All right, let's see, going over last month's meeting, I was not here, so thanks for taking the minutes, Tom. You're welcome. Anything new on Livingston Avenue?
On October 17th, the county passed a conditional resolution awarding the project to Z Brothers, I believe. It was contingent on the DOT concurring, and they finally got the DOT concurrence, I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken. So now that becomes, so now the resolution to award the contract is official.
Okay. And they still expected to
Start
start
in the spring. Yeah, by the time they get the bonds, get all the documentation in place, I'll have to submit shop drawings for the signals and all that stuff, but by the time they get into the ground, they expect to be in the spring.
Okay. Excellent. Moving ahead. Let's see, George's Road, Town, these are the delineators.
Yeah, we expect that. We finally just got the bids back. That order is probably in place right now. We hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll get our replenishment supply of delineators. So we can address this issue and also the items we'll see later on.
How many thousand have you looked?
I think we ordered 400 this year.
400, is that all?
400, yeah. But they're $80 a piece.
I really?
So do you go for quotes per or for a whole batch?
What we do, that's part of our regulatory sign annual contract. So, you know, with stop signs and all that, that's one of the opportunities in that.
Okay. Let's see, Raritan Gardens, I guess, oh, that's part of the delineators.
Correct.
Good for that. Anything new on the Stanley Lane Bridge project?
I haven't heard back from the state. They were trying to schedule a follow-up to the one where they basically agreed to the offset intersection at Huntington and George. Rutgers is going to give up a bunch of property in that little parking lot behind the communication school building, I believe it is.
Is that the circle? The roundabout?
It won't be a roundabout. They're going to realize as you come down Huntington, headed to the existing signal, there's a small parking lot behind that Rutgers. I think it's the communications building. And they're going to
Where the old police department was?
I'm sorry?
Is that where the police department
It's
was?
across the street.
Okay.
So as you come down Huntington, they're going to realign it so with one signal they can make a four-way intersection. So then you can then get onto Route 18 North.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that was probably the easiest of the different options they looked at. It did not require any reinforcement of retaining walls, or it was just a matter of a signal and realigning the roadways. Maybe some minor modification to stormwater.
That'd be fabulous. Yeah. So, okay. So does the city have to take any action on that? Is that just strictly Rutgers property?
Well, the Rutgers would have to vacate to the, yes, well, we don't know. That's the next step, get into the details. Because you have three different roadway jurisdictions. You have state on one side, county, and then us. So we'll go through it. And who owns the signal at that point, you know, things of that nature.
Okay.
And two state entities, because you have Rutgers and the DOT, so.
Correct.
Anything on the commercial vehicle ordinance?
I defer to Mr. Jones.
No. Want to elaborate on that? Just kidding. E-scooters. Anything new on e-scooters?
Yes and no. So we are having a conversation with PD just to make sure that all of the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. Kind of just just in terms of thinking ahead if we want to bring somebody in terms of that.
We basically just conducted our own study, meeting with Hoboken, meeting with Elizabeth. It was the closest town to me, I ended up reaching out to some, out of state jurisdictions, just kind of consulting how they go about enforcing it, local ordinances, issues, problems, good things.
Well, Elizabeth closed down.
Yeah, they implemented it, so I didn't speak with them.
Yeah.
And that was like right
Because
before.
I guess someone got killed or
There
something?
was a fatal, correct. There was a fatal bullying juvenile, and they suspended the program shortly thereafter.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
We had hoped to have one company come here today, but we weren't able to coordinate for that. But we are hoping for the January 2nd meeting to have White Fox. They are the only e-scooter company that is based.
Yes. Basically, the speed that cars are traveling Eastern Avenue, in some cases, trucks bouncing and complain that the house is vibrating, things of that nature. I did speak to Lieutenant Trigg about this. He said he would take some kind of action, whether it was in the post-mortem patrol, I'm not sure. But I made him aware of Ms. Miller's complaints.
She's called the traffic office. We've also spoken her several times. There's been several speed traps out there. We've had the speed trailer measuring speeds. We've done a lot of enforcement.
All right, good.
So when they go out there, they register in the CAD, and
Right.
it's been significant.
So it's increased, the
Correct.
enforcement's increased, okay, just so I have for the notes. All right, great, thank you. I received no correspondence in the last month, that, I have nothing new. Ed? Carol?
Nope.
Tom?
At this point, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I know that's fair.
you good? Police?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Just touch on Lincoln County. Lincoln County is doing great. So Freshie actually donated 10% of their proceeds to Lincoln County yesterday. So most of the meters are full as of yesterday. So we have a nice collection that we are the schedule that we're on, and this should be encouraging for more meters down the road.
Great.
With IPS. Been having a conversation with Tom about the underpass
Front Street.
on where wellness is, right outside of the wellness deck.
Yeah.
So we want to rehab that a little bit,
Brighten it up.
brighten it up, clean it up, and possibly paint it.
Well, just so you know that we're working on a pedestrian bridge,
Okay.
and part of that project is to put lights, additional lighting under that bridge.
Okay.
So hold off on any lighting, I mean, as far as,
Yeah.
because that's gonna be part of the project.
What is the timeline on that?
Well, if it was up to us, it'd be yesterday.
I know, you wait on the Amtrak and Transit, right?
Right. I mean, we're at 90% drawings. We're just waiting for Amtrak and,
Because I even know with the configuration of the new intersection of Easton Spring, French, and Albany, with moving the bus stop, we had to take into account one of the abutments that you're going to come down from the pedestrian bridge.
I see.
And then the county was working with transit, they had a survey and whatnot, so that with the pedestrian bridge, when there's a column that comes down.
Yes.
And they had
And
a
the,
jockey, it was
Yeah.
a 5-foot,
yeah,
but it was a 5-foot jockey for the transit, for the bus stop,
right, I remember that.
going southbound.
Gotcha. So I'm just passing that on, I mean, you guys.
Yeah, so maybe there's some sort of temporary thing we can do.
Okay.
That's not a permanent fix, but we are looking to jump on that as quickly as possible.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but sometimes just painting the walls underneath white,
Well, so
brightens it up.
here's the bright side of that. There's actually lighting under there already. Meantime, I had a conversation about it just needs to be some repairs need to happen under there. So maybe with the paint and then taking care of those lighting that already exists, We discussed possibly putting something in our right of way that's not directly under the overpass, but shines light under the overpass, so there's some sort of, and just make sure that, you know, it's not as dark as it normally is, and the pigeons have a lot of fun over there.
Yeah, it's
so-
an issue too.
So we just want to make sure that we can brighten that up. The only other thing I have, I don't know how, what the response has been so far with this,
Well, yeah,
no left turn.
Right, that was item 4, Mitch, for your edification.
Did I miss that?
Item 4, under new business, the meeting minutes, we had observed multiple cars that were coming down Elm Row, making an illegal lap to get into the parking lot.
Oh, yes.
So we had, I think, 4 different one-ways or left-hand prohibited signs. You come down Elm Road, it's very well obvious. I don't know if the police has had any other complaints since that.
We haven't since then, not that I'm aware of though.
When did you put the sign in?
About a month and a half ago. Dan came to us and said, "Hey, you're out there."
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I was walking down my street and I saw a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still see them.
Just
Less,
Here.
fewer.
Yeah.
I still
Okay,
see
fair
them.
enough. But I mean, you have,
Unless you put a physical obstruction there,
I mean, you have 3 no, one ways, and then you have the international symbol with
And
the.
to add, and I don't know that we can do anything about it, but this week in particular, I've noticed a lot of left-hand turns onto Bigger over here.
Well, and that's, we have
Paul
2,
Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad this week.
and we have 2 do not enters, we have 2 one-ways. I don't know that I can add any more signs.
Let's put some
Well,
cement.
signs,
Let's put a fountain right there.
I put signs in our parking garages.
Okay, no access to that, understood.
I see people driving the wrong way in the garage. I'm like scratching my head, how they possibly do that. I don't even know how they got there.
Well, just as a little minor.
Seriously, I mean, it baffles the mind.
It was actually on Thanksgiving Day, we were addressing a sewer blockage on Jersey Avenue, so I went to go see the DPW guys, and I'm on 18 local lanes coming up to the traffic on George Street, and here's a car trying to make a left-hand turn onto the wrong way. That's state jurisdiction. They used to have a one left, several signs have been knocked down, so I went ahead unilaterally, and I had our guys put up 2 no one-ways on the lights, so that when at least you approach the intersection, you can see that it's one way. That's one of probably 20 locations that the state has not been very quick to respond to. We have a numerous number of signs down, literally at Albany, once you cross past the Hyatt. That's all DOT jurisdiction. Likewise, on the island at Nielsen and New, on the state side, there's a series of signs down there. There's probably 35 signs they have not responded to, that we've reported.
Right.
So we just,
Well, this one, this action here is, in my mind, is equates to jaywalk. You know, you're supposed to walk at the crosswalk, but it's so much shorter than just cross.
understood.
That's how people look at it.
So, are we still on Keith? Still window?
Yeah.
Okay. So, DOT as well. So, you reminded me that we were waiting for the Paul Robeson signs to be fabricated on the highway.
This is 18, right?
Yes, with 18, we were thinking that we were going to get these things no earlier than 2020, February, something like that. I've been pressuring DOT. They called me back and said, hey, we're going to put these up within 2 weeks. And this was a call I got right before the holiday. So it's going to be in 2 phases. The first phase is they're going to slap the plates, the temporary plates up there for Paul Robeson Boulevard. And they're still waiting for U-bolts for the complete signs to do the overhaul. So at the time their crane was down, they have, I think I've shared with the group before, that they have one team for the entire state that actually installs the signs.
That was one team.
Wow. One team. So we were in a queue for the entire state. And we got bumped up on the queue, which is cool. So it's yet to take place. So how, if we get these things in before 2020, I would be amazed. Our signs that says Commercial Avenue, Barbarossa Boulevard, formerly known as Commercial Avenues, we had those scheduled to be up for 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, we can take them now.
So we may be in a position where we are, as much as we would like to think that we are dragging our feet on this, we might be a little bit ahead of the 8 ball on this.
Right. Good.
So we'll see.
All right.
So,
Anything else?
A little preliminary, but we got contacted by what's the name of the company? Green Dot or Green Spot. They're interested in.
That's okay. Be careful what you say.
They were amazing people, and
Don't stop.
I'm so happy that they had an amazing Thanksgiving and all that great stuff.
There you go.
But they're here, so. we're-
Yes. Okay. Charlie, you have anything?
I think you go first.
Okay.
Should I go there? Should I just talk from
Yeah,
here?
wherever you're more comfortable.
Come on.
Really,
Okay, I'm
we
gonna,
have no boundaries.
wonderful. Do you mind if I sit? Can I sit? here?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. My name is Rosie Little. This is my colleague, Martin Denalian. And we are based out of Jersey City, New Jersey. We're a company that installs, operates, and manages electric vehicle charging stations. We were born out of a real estate development group about 5 years ago, but since then have moved away from installing charging stations from private developments all throughout the state of New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, etc., and have begun installing stations in the right-of-way for municipalities. We began with the city of Jersey City. We expanded more recently to Asbury Park. We're working with a handful of municipalities within Monmouth County. We're also working with municipalities here, including Woodbridge, as well as other folks in this county. But really the bread and butter of what we do is we come into municipalities and we install, operate, and manage charging stations either at no cost to municipalities or at little to no cost, depending on what sort of agreement we enter into with the municipality. The operation is fairly simple. Once Green Spot has the rights to install the stations, we will work with the local utility here at PSC.
Yes.
And we will pull the power to the location. And then if anything happens with the charging stations, if there's ever a problem with the hardware or a problem with the software, we are the first line of contact.
What about a, God forbid, a vehicular accident wipes out your station? I'm sure that occurs, yeah.
Usually we'll put in bollards right in front of the station,
Okay.
so the person would have to be driving really fast to go through that first line of defense.
Nothing surprising.
Nothing surprising, but yes, if there's a problem with the hardware, that's Green Spot. We'll work directly with the manufacturer of the charging station to make sure that the station is up and operational as soon as possible once something like that takes place. We have determined preliminary locations within New Brunswick that we think would be appropriate for charging stations. I know that you already have Clipper Creek stations installed, 2 stations installed in the parking authority garage, right next to each other, right on when you first drive in, you see them.
Well, we have, I'm with the public authority, so we have, there's 3 garages that have charging stations. The Wellness Garage, this one right next door, and the Gateway Garage.
Right.
And we also just received a grant from the state, so we're going to be putting them all in every garage.
That's excellent. So I'm glad to hear that you guys were proactive in getting your phase to plug funding while it's still available, because it actually just stopped. They're not giving out funding anymore. So what Green Spot would do is we would come in, we're working with a number of folks that have the phase to plug money available, and we would utilize that funding to purchase the stations and operate and maintain them so that it's not something that the city or that the parking authority has to deal with and think about. We're also looking at other locations, not just the parking garages, but also you have a few parks nearby that could work. And we're speaking to, of course, Rutgers as well about putting in stations on their property. They have, in New Brunswick, I believe there are 6 or 9 charging stations in total. You have about over 50,000 people that live here. And so we think that those ratios, especially with the way that EVs are moving, the direction that it's moving, where more people are adopting the cars, purchasing them or leasing them, just having charging stations in the right of way makes a ton of sense.
So let me ask you, when you operate these, do you fee to charge the vehicle?
It's usually a nominal fee, it's a transactional fee, and then it also will cover the cost of electricity. So let's say at that time electricity is 20 cents,
Right.
we might, 20 cents per kWh, we might have to charge to like $1. And depending on if Green Spot owns the stations or if the city owns the stations, those funds would go either to Green Spot or to the city. But we think that there's an opportunity to have a revenue stream through the charging stations. Of course, you're not going to make a ton of money on it, but there is an opportunity there to not only cover your bases, but to make a little bit more on top of that. Are you charging for your Clipper Creeks?
No, we're not, we don't charge.
And are you, when you install in the other locations, was there any intention to?
Not initially. I'm really waiting to see, in my mind, it's more of a supply and demand. If you see that there's a huge demand, then you might have to just start charging. But right now, it seems like it's not every spot is taken all the time.
Right.
So I don't think it's fair right now to charge for that.
I hear that a lot. It's
And it's also, I'm sorry, it's also difficult because you're in a parking garage. So, technically you can't resell electricity. The SEG won't let you because you don't provide enough. So you know all about this. So you have to charge a premium for the parking space, technically. That's what you have to do. So, but it's hard within the garage to charge a separate fee unless you put something at the charging station. You did a credit card and charge it X amount.
So our charging stations, we've come into this problem often, and we understand we're not a utility, which is why we have the upcharge on the energy. So if the energy costs 25 cents, we'll up the charge, and it'll be usually like an hourly fee or a fee every 30 minutes or so. With our charging stations, end users can either pay as a guest, can sign up and pay as a guest, or they can join our network. Since we have about 400, with the rights to install about 400 stations throughout the state of New Jersey, which we're anticipating before the end of the year, it makes sense to be a member of our network. With that being said, you pay by credit card, and then also you pay for the parking fee. But I certainly understand not wanting people to have to pay with two different transactions. We could incorporate the parking fee into the charging fee and have that bill be sent back to the parking authority. So there's a few ways to skin this cat.
All right, well, that's something to consider.
Are the plugs universal?
Yes, they are universal.
Even with Tesla?
Yes, so with Teslas.
There was some disconnect earlier on in the industry, okay.
So Teslas have adapters in the back of their car. So if you want to know the technical term, it's called a J1772, doesn't matter, but that plug, there's an adapter on the back of the Tesla car that they can just plug in and they're good to go.
And the current is the same?
Um,
I thought the Teslas had to be a higher amperage for some reason because they were...
So there's a few different types of levels of charging. There's a level 2 station, and that's about, so there's the level 2s, and then there's the DC fast chargers. And Tesla has the same, so they'll have like their Tesla rapid emitting chargers. They emit a different speed of energy, meaning that the speed at which you can fill up your car will differ. It's about 25 miles being plugged in for level 2. You can get about 80% fully charged with the DC fast charger. So it just different locations call for different types of charging stations.
Sure.
Yep, what locations have you identified so far?
So we identified a handful of the parking garages. There's a few that are not 24 hours. We did not include those because we thought it would just be easier to include the 24/7 locations. There's
You said there's a few that aren't 24 hours.
That's what I read on the website, on the...
All our garages.
Oh, they're all 20?
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, I'll look back at that.
Let me know, because
Yeah,
that's
I'll
wrong.
yeah.
Because they are 24/7.
I'll send you the link that I was looking at. It's on the website. There's a park, a museum by the water. I'm not sure.
Boyd Park.
Pardon?
Boyd Park?
Correct. I'm not sure if that is city-owned or if that's privately owned. That was another location we identified. There's the location where the New Brunswick farmer's market happens. I think there's 2 different locations
On
for that.
George's Road?
I believe so.
Okay.
That was one location, because that's a place where people will come, they'll park for 25, 30 minutes, and that's a location where even if if the farmer's market is not all year round, when it is up and operational, it might be a place where people would like to sit and charge.
It's actually Rutgers property.
It's Rutgers property, okay. And then I believe there was one other park a little bit more south that we had identified. The name, I have it on my computer, but I don't have it. I can send you a list of locations that we identified.
That'd be cool.
Do you ever consider putting them on the street?
We do, most certainly. In Asbury Park, we actually have only installed it on the street there. The nature of Asbury Park, there's not many parking garages, if any, that the city owns. So they're on the curb. And we worked with New Energy to do the installs there. We started with one pilot location with 2 charging stations on Madison, which is right across from City Hall. We're going to be expanding to 2 more locations. One is going to be in an EJC community, environmental justice community, and then another location is closer to the beach and the boardwalk.
The charging stations that I purchase are I guess, double heads, if you will. All right, is those the same?
Correct, the dual
municipal-
ports.
The dual ports, right, that's the name of it, double heads.
Double edged, is that the same?
I got it.
One aspect that I have not spoken about yet is shared electric mobility. This is one aspect of Green Spot's program that differentiates us from other charging companies, is that once we have an electrified spot, we can bring in shared electric cars to the location for the public to be able to rent. So we'll work with fleet owners, and if you're familiar with like Zipcar or what's another one?
Enterprise.
Like Enterprise as well. There, Turo, Get Around, there's a few companies. So we will put electric vehicles in those locations, and people will download an app and they'll be able to rent the car. They go through a security check, they have to have a credit card. But this is a program that we're bringing into Asbury Park, as well as other locations all up along the Jersey Shore to provide folks with shared mobility. You mentioned White Fox earlier. We've actually worked with White Fox before. Because our spot is electrified, White Fox then connected to our charging station and offered a docked scooter at our location. So we've then created a mobility hub where people can come to either charge their car, to rent a car, or to rent a scooter. And it's all environmentally friendly because it's all electric, and it fits very well into various state goals. No scooter?
No, the environmental friendly, power's produced somewhere, so there's always carbon.
Tom loves it.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. We're actually working with a company right now, we're working with a few companies to make sure that the energy that we pull for our charging stations is then provided by clean energy. So we're offsetting our carbon footprint by utilizing these.
That was gonna be a question. So, Jersey City, you're working on it already. Have they used this at all, in relation to their Sustainable New Jersey credits or points?
That's a great question. I have to check with those folks, with Mayor Fulop, and ask them that, because I hope they did. We have a 19 zone, EV zone, and there would be no reason why they shouldn't have used that for their Sustainable Jersey credit. I believe they're cold. What is?
We don't want to discuss that right now.
Okay. Well, we can help you get a little bit
We're
closer to
improving.
whatever.
I think we were bronze the last time we went out
I'm sorry.
for Sustainable New Jersey with the new group that we put together and trying to revamp that whole thing. So, and that was the last time so I know there's a new group that needs to be put together, and with all of the improvements that we made so far, we should be
Excellent.
cruising up a little bit. But I'm thinking if something like this, how would that impact, our system?
So I believe electric vehicle charging, and we're passing an ordinance, or just installing stations gives you about 10 or 15 points out of 100. So that's not terrible. I mean, there's a lot of things that you need to do to get gold or bronze or but it certainly helps.
Last question would be, so you identified, I think you said 6 locations?
think actually it was more like 10, but of course, we don't immediately start with 10 locations. We'll usually pick 2 or 3 locations that we think will be, that are the best on the list. We'll install 1 charging station to begin with, and then we'll expand the program as we see fit or as utilization deems necessary. With that being said, Green Spot pays for the charging stations. We install them, we operate them. It is at no cost to the town, so we think of it as a no-brainer, but of course, there's a...
What operating charging stations do you normally use?
We are most recently using BTC. We've also used another company called EvoCharge.
Yeah.
If the majority of these locations would be going into a garage, we would pick a lighter duty version. We use BTC power because the majority of our stations are installed in the right of way, meaning they have to be weatherproof, they have to be, if anything happens to them, they have to be durable enough. In a garage, you're not facing a lot of the same
Elements.
Exactly.
Right, my last question, I think we talked about this over the phone. Is there any community input or opportunities, employment opportunities? I know when we talk with a lot of our electric scooter companies and different rideshare companies, we ask about the community impact and if there's some employment opportunities for whether it's maintenance or whether there's some sort of outreach component with
Certainly, so there's a few parts. We primarily only use, it's actually in the past in New Jersey, we've only used union electricians to do the install, so that's part of it. When we install our charging stations, we really think that our work begins once the station is in the ground. Part of what we do is we'll work with local restaurants or local businesses or organizations to either sponsor or promote our charging station. So if we're installing right next to a coffee shop, we might say, show the coffee shop that you're charging and we'll give you 10% off. So it's a way to
Incentivize.
exactly, and to encourage people to use the charging stations, but to also go to these local businesses. We won't do that with a Starbucks, but we might do it with a local business.
Well, in the right of way, a couple of things come to mind. Obviously, we'd have to establish a right of way use agreement between Green Spot and the city, like we've done in other cases with other type things. The trick in the downtown area, I would imagine, based on the demographics, how we go and decide to choose, you may have some issues in complementary with the parking authority about maybe taking a paid parking spot, so that's just depends up to you. Typically, I would imagine the downtown area would be attractive to them because obviously you want use, you want turnaround, so there may be impact on your side, and then finally from us as a detail oriented, how do we get the power there and what the impact is in order to get the power there, because in the downtown area, all utilities are.
Got it.
So it becomes a little bit more, I'm not saying it's impossible, it becomes more challenging, that's all.
We can incorporate parking prices into our charging prices. And if you want people to have a quick turnaround, we can say the parking is only an hour limit in certain locations. We can say if you're charging longer than an hour, the rate jumps from $1 an hour to $6 an hour or $10 an hour to decentivize people from being parked for too long.
Do you have a business card?
I do.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
You talked about like more transient spots, but also talked about like parking garages, which are, maybe hours or the whole working day. Is there any rhyme or reason to how you pick your spots to focus more on a more transient, where somebody's running downtown, jumping into a shop for 15 minutes, a half hour, or an hour, vice a parking deck where they might be there for an 8-hour day?
Certainly. So in these different locations, we'll consider different types of chargers. I mentioned earlier that there's level 2 stations and that there's DC fast chargers, rapid emitting chargers. So in downtown areas where we're looking for a higher turnover, and people are only going to be there for about 20-30 minutes, we might install a higher, faster emitting charger because it can get their battery fully charged. Whereas in a parking garage, we might consider installing a level 2 because they're only getting 25 miles of range per hour. Not only, that's still a significant amount, but it's more it encourages folks to be charged in place for longer. That's part of it. It's also a discussion with whomever owns the garage or whose curb we're installing on. It's very much a conversation of the types of commuters and the types of end users we're going to be looking at in that location.
So in the selection process, you have criteria to make these recommendations. You then bring them back to the municipality with some sort of a little site plan and say, I'm gonna put this, it's gonna be a traffic cabinet or something like that, something fairly robust, the bollards. There's gonna be cables that go to the cars. How do the cables get retracted and not become trip hazards? How far from the curb to the back of your device, so how much sidewalk are you leaving me after the fact for pedestrian traffic?
Certainly.
Those kinds of things are all taken under consideration as you
Yes.
make your site selections?
Very much so. Our stations are ADA compliant, meaning that they have to have cable retractors. The cable retractors have to be a specific length so that you don't have the problem of wires hanging on the ground. The stations themselves, the PTC stations that we install, are only about 2 feet. They're fairly small. There are rules that we encountered in all of the locations that we've installed in the right of way of how much space you need to leave on the sidewalk versus the curb. With the size of if there's going to be like a concrete mound that the station goes on. These are rules that are usually in place by a municipality, by like state law, that we have to abide by for charging stations. And as more charging stations come and are installed, the rules are becoming more and more robust that we would take care of. But yes, to answer your question, we do provide you with drawings and a site plan of where we think the charging stations would go, where they make sense depending on where we're pulling power from. That's also a conversation that we have with the utility to make sure that the charging station is as close to the power source as possible, just to keep costs low.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Charlie?
Good afternoon, members of the board. Charles Cradaville, New Brunswick today. I'll start with something Danielle wanted me to ask. She wanted me to ask Mr. Valenti about the flashing lights for Livingston Ave.
They're on order. We expect delivery hopefully in the next week or
Delivery in the next week or two,
two.
and then
we'll install them immediately.
This was in the middle school? Is that what you're talking
Yeah, this is a unilateral decision that I made. These are they're not the overhead big ones like we have at the other schools. That's going to probably take about 2 years to secure permission from the DOT because it's their right way up on Livingston Ave. These are similar to the ones that you see either on Brunswick Avenue in 2 locations or also on Lee Avenue behind Red Shaw School. They're the school flashing. They're just these little strobes that flash all the time. They're set on a 7-day calendar. They're not the overhead, but it's going to add more visibility to the location.
okay. And I haven't been at these meetings for a while. I know you had some visits from scooter companies. Can you tell me which companies came and what they had to say?
Bird and Lime came, I want to say our September and October meetings, or maybe it was August and September, but thereabouts. They came by, they talked about their safety mechanisms, how they would operate in town. They brought a scooter for demonstration purposes, showed us how their system brakes, like in terms of slowing down, versus decelerates versus their competitors. They all have different methods for approaching that and trying to answer our questions regarding safety, local investment and employment, community development, etc. So I mean, it's pretty, I don't know how to describe it. It was just exactly what you'd expect. Yeah, it was just a presentation about what they would be providing.
And White Fox would be a similar company making a similar presentation, hopefully in January.
They are a similar company, smaller scale, because they're sort of like a local small company, yeah, presumably their presentation would be the same. They may come with something that we hadn't expected.
Are they coming in January?
The intent is to have them in
Okay.
January. We wanted to confirm the date. That's why I was asking if we were going to meet on the 2nd. I want to make sure that everyone can do it. So, but yeah, the intent is to have White Fox.
And I want to understand what the process would be for selecting or bringing on one or more companies to do this in the city. Who would have the say? Who would make the call? Where would the public have a chance to voice their input?
probably here in city council, because we would enter into a contract with one or more vendors as the ordinance permits us, as long as we stay under the self-imposed cap.
So it would be by resolution of the council, presumably?
Yeah, I mean, we may have another discussion here, but the contract would have to be, you know, the council would have to have authorization to enter into the contract with the separate vendors, so yeah.
Okay, because I do think public input's very important. I'm very concerned about what happened in Elizabeth, you know, just the first month of their program. A very young person losing their life. Yeah, want to make sure this is done right, and that if, you know, I was a little alarmed that the ordinance, for instance, that was adopted wasn't, the language of it wasn't brought to the Traffic Commission first. I think I mentioned this at the council meeting, but I know you guys did have visits from the potential partners, but there was no, as far as I know, you guys didn't get the chance to review the language in the ordinance that was passed, and I think that that was a mistake, and I would hope that, you know, going forward, that, you know, these decisions will be made, you know, in public, and these meetings are a great place to start. I guess the only other thing I wanted to address would be our bus system that continues to be behind the times. I know Rutgers has just a handful of electric buses. I know we have these county-run shuttle services that are really, you know, frankly subpar, and just sort of continuing. I know we have the New Brunswick shuttle, which is still driving around with a very low number of passengers, and brought forth some constructive proposals to this body last February, and have you know, met with the mayor and others about you know, how things could be better and some directions we could move, and just have not seen really any significant progress. We did get one new bus shelter opened on 27 right by the train station, which is great, but you know, the shelters are only a small part of it. That's just really the kind of a fundamental thing that we should be doing as a city. But is there anything in the works? I know when I brought up the idea of working more with Rutgers and having Rutgers perhaps expand some of their service into the neighborhoods in New Brunswick, you know, and work as a partner with the city more, it was alluded to by the prior planning director that, you know, that was something we were thinking about doing. We're talking about that. You know, that's we're already moving in that direction. Is there any update on that, or is that no longer in the cards?
I will say, I don't know if it's not in the cards, because as I won't speak, closing something off forever. In my time in the seat, I have not spoken with Rutgers about that. The last time that I had any meeting with Rutgers regarding something like that, I went with Glenn. I think it was in 2017, so it's been a while. And I don't know anything about newer situations with working with Rutgers.
Okay, well, we need leaders to step up and get the partners together. This is a commission that, you know, your hearts are all in the right place. You're all trying to do good, but we don't have a representative from the county here. We don't have a representative from Rutgers here. And you know, the DOT as well, not represented here, so there's not, you know, a lot of these problems devolve into, well, it's somebody else's jurisdiction, and, you know, we can maybe write them a letter or follow up with them. But I would think that, you know, if we wanted to turn this into more of a problem-solving committee, we should have a regular invitation to the head of transportation services at Rutgers University. I know Middlesex County is in the process of creating a transportation department, something I'm applauding them for doing, and I think they're going to have a director soon. Probably will work right across the street. It would make perfect sense for them to be invited to these meetings and participate in these meetings and hash some of these things out more swiftly and get everybody on the same page so that we can provide better level of service to the residents and visitors in the great city of New Brunswick. So I hope that in 2020, these meetings are a place where we have guests from those other institutions that are so critically important to you know, the transportation infrastructure network. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Anything else?
No, she's with me.
You got anything?
I hope not.
All right. We're good? Adjourned. Okay, thank you. See you January 2nd.